In 1953, South Korea lay in ruins, cities flattened, farmlands destroyed, millions homeless. At that time, the country was poorer than most African nations, with an economy smaller than Ghana's or Sudan's. Few believed survival was even possible. Yet within just 2 generations, South Korea rose to become one of the world's most advanced economies, home to global giants like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG, and a cultural powerhouse exporting K-pop and K-dramas to the world. How did this transformation happen, and what can the rest of the world learn from it? Post-war poverty and desperation. After the Korean War ended in 1953, South Korea was one of the poorest countries on earth. Its per capita income was under $70 a year, worse than many sub-Saharan African countries at the time. Over half the population lived in extreme poverty. The economy depended almost entirely on foreign aid, especially from the United States. Agriculture was backward. Industry barely existed. The country lacked coal, oil, or natural resources that could have driven growth. Adding to this misery was political instability. Governments came and went, corruption was rampant, and survival, not development, was the national focus. And yet, amidst this devastation, seeds of change were quietly being planted. The Korean people had one asset money could not buy: resilience. Communities rebuilt schools and bombed out classrooms. Families pooled money for children's education, and an unyielding cultural drive for survival kept the nation moving. This was not yet a miracle, but it was the foundation. Because in the decades ahead, South Korea would craft one of the most remarkable development blueprints in modern history: Park Chung-hee and the developmental state. The turning point came in 1961, when General Park Chung-hee seized power through a military coup. To many Koreans, Park was controversial, authoritarian, strict, and uncompromising. But he introduced something the country had never seen before: a national development plan. Park believed Korea could not rely on foreign aid forever. He launched the first 5-year economic development plan in 1962 with one simple strategy: industrialize or perish. His model was export-oriented industrialization. Instead of producing just for local markets, Korea would manufacture for the world. The government took direct control of banks, channeling cheap loans to selected companies. It identified industries Korea should focus on: textiles, shipbuilding, steel, and poured resources into them. Corruption was punished harshly, and efficiency was rewarded. Park also fostered a partnership between the state and big businesses, creating a unique corporate structure called Chaebol, family-run conglomerates that could compete globally with state backing. Samsung, Hyundai, and LG were among the beneficiaries. But this was not a story of quick success. Park's policies demanded discipline and sacrifice. Workers endured long hours, unions were suppressed, and freedom was restricted. Yet the strategy worked. By the early 1970s, South Korea's exports were booming, and the miracle had begun. Building heavy industries, South Korea understood a crucial lesson: no country becomes rich by selling only cheap goods. To compete globally, Korea needed heavy industry. The government invested heavily in steel, shipbuilding, petrochemicals, and later automobiles. A landmark moment was the creation of POSCO, the Pohang Iron and Steel Company, in 1968. Critics mocked the idea of a poor country building a modern steel industry. Yet within a decade, POSCO became one of the world's largest and most efficient steel producers. Hyundai followed by building massive shipyards. In the 1970s, it launched one of the world's largest shipbuilding complexes in Ulsan. Soon, Hyundai ships were sailing across the globe. By mastering heavy industry, Korea gained the backbone for all future innovation. Steel supplied cars, ships carried exports, chemicals fueled manufacturing. Every industrial success layered on top of the last, building an interconnected system that made Korea unstoppable. It was not glamorous, it was not easy, but it laid the groundwork for the technological revolution to come. Investing in education. While factories rose, South Korea invested in something even more powerful: its people. Education became a national obsession. In the 1960s, the government made universal primary education compulsory. By the 1970s, secondary school enrollment soared. Families sacrificed meals and comforts to pay for tuition. Mothers sold jewelry. Fathers worked multiple jobs, all to ensure their children studied. By the 1980s, South Korea had one of the highest literacy rates in the world. Universities expanded rapidly, producing engineers, scientists, and technicians who fueled the industrial boom. Unlike many developing nations that neglected education in pursuit of quick profits, Korea understood that long-term prosperity required knowledge. This cultural commitment to education created an army of skilled workers who could adapt quickly to new technologies. The rise of the Chaebol, Perhaps the most unique feature of Korea's economic miracle was the rise of the Chaebol. These family-controlled conglomerates became the engines of growth. Samsung started as a small trading company in 1938, but under government support, it expanded into electronics, chemicals, construction, and finance. Hyundai, once a tiny repair shop, grew into a global car and shipbuilding empire. LG, originally Lucky Gold Star, became a pioneer in consumer electronics. The Chaebol were not ordinary corporations. They were vast networks of subsidiaries, often run by founding families, deeply intertwined with government policy. In exchange for loyalty and performance, they received cheap loans, tax breaks, and export incentives. Critics argue the Chaebol created monopolies and concentrated power. But in Korea's early development phase, they were essential. They gave the country global players capable of competing with Japan and the United States. Today, Samsung alone contributes nearly 20% of South Korea's GDP. The Chaebol transformed from state-assisted champions into global giants, symbols of Korea's astonishing rise. Technology, transfer, and innovation. Korea's technological rise did not begin with innovation. It began with imitation. In the 1960s and 70s, Korean firms imported machinery, studied Japanese and American techniques, and learned through copying. But they didn't stop there. Instead of remaining dependent, Korea emphasized learning, adapting, and improving. By the 1980s, companies like Samsung and LG moved from assembling foreign products to designing their own. The government encouraged R&D, while universities partnered with industries. Technology transfer turned into genuine innovation. The cultural explosion, K-wave. By the 1990s and 2000s, South Korea had mastered industry and technology. But its next export was unexpected. Culture, K-pop, with its polished idols and catchy music, swept Asia and later the world. Korean dramas became global sensations, culminating in shows like Squid Game on Netflix. Korea's cultural reach rivals Hollywood and Japan. From BTS topping global charts to Oscar-winning films like Parasite, the world consumes Korean culture eagerly. South Korea's rise, however, is not without challenges. The nation now faces one of the fastest aging populations in the world. Birth rates have plummeted to the lowest globally, raising fears of a shrinking workforce. Youth unemployment remains high, with many young Koreans frustrated by rigid hierarchies and the overwhelming dominance of the Chaebol. Inequality has grown. Housing in Seoul is among the most expensive in the world, creating generational divides between those who own property and those who cannot. A divided peninsula. South Korea's story is incomplete without its northern neighbor. While the South embraced capitalism and industrialization, North Korea chose isolation and central planning. The result could not be more different. Today, South Korea boasts a GDP per capita above $35,000, while North Korea struggles with poverty, sanctions, and food shortages. The contrast of the two Koreas is one of history's greatest experiments. Two peoples, one culture, two systems, two destinies. For South Koreans, the North remains both a threat and a reminder of what might have been. Lessons for the world. South Korea's miracle offers lessons for the world. It shows that poverty is not destiny. With strong state planning, disciplined investment, and a relentless focus on education, a war-torn nation can transform into a global leader. But it also shows that miracles come at a price: sacrifice, long hours, and an iron-fisted government. Korea's model cannot be copied exactly, yet its principles, investing in people, building industries strategically, and refusing to accept limitations, remain universal. From war zone to Samsung empire, South Korea proves that nations, like people, can rise from ashes to greatness. So what can you do? First, share this video. Most people don't realize how a war-torn, aid-dependent country became one of the richest nations in the world within a single generation. Second, subscribe, because we're going to keep uncovering the hidden economic stories that explain how nations rise and why others fall. And third, drop a comment. Do you think South Korea's model of growth can be copied by other developing countries? Or was it a once-in-history miracle? Next week, Ethiopia, the country replacing China as world's factory.